The girl watched as her pregnant mother was about to go into labor but deliberately cut off the phone line to contact her father. She thought her mother was just pretending to ruin her father's date with her favorite aunt. She left her mother, about to give birth prematurely, in the living room to fend for herself. The woman never imagined her daughter, whom she carried for 10 months, would be so heartless. However, it wasn't just the ungrateful daughter who was heartless. She, 7 months pregnant, struggled to hail a cab in the pouring rain. To her surprise, the cab she finally managed to get into was occupied by her husband and his mistress. When she asked him to take her to the hospital due to her premature labor, the husband's first response was to question how she could possibly give birth at 7 months. The mistress sarcastically said they only had a business relationship, and that the woman shouldn't fabricate such ridiculous lies out of jealousy. Then she suggested that if the man couldn't help her, he could leave her there, and she could walk home in the rain. The mistress's move of retreating first led the man to make a quick decision. He angrily said that ever since the mistress returned to the country, his wife had been locking him at home. Now she was making up such an absurd lie, it was unreasonable. The woman never imagined that after 10 years of hard work alongside this man, their marriage had been one of silent suffering. Even the funds for the husband's factory startup were earned by her selling hamburgers. Yet now the man wanted to abandon her after she gave birth. At that moment, she was thankful for the decision she made 3 days ago. It turned out that 3 days ago, her dog had accidentally chewed up her marriage certificate. When they went to renew it, she was shocked to find that her marital status was listed as unmarried. Her husband, not only married but also the mistress's partner. He was just a temporary stand-in while the mistress was abroad. The man had once chosen her because of her orphan status, thinking she was easy to control and discard. But after years of living together and having children, he changed his mind, wanting to enjoy both women. The woman had been silently enduring her husband and daughter's disrespect and betrayal. Now, learning that 10 years of marriage had been a lie, she decided to completely abandon them. 3 years ago, she had learned that she was the long-lost daughter of a wealthy family. But because her family was powerful, they refused to accept her marrying an ordinary man. She had refused to reconnect with her family for her husband and daughter. Now, she had no more attachment and had agreed with her family to sever ties after giving birth. Little did she know, she would experience premature labor, and her husband and daughter would refuse to help. Even more devastating, though a kind soul helped her to the hospital where she gave birth with great difficulty, her baby developed a brain and lung infection that required a large amount of treatment funds. She tried to get her husband to bring her savings book, but he wouldn't answer her calls. When she returned home, she found her family of 3 happily having dinner. Thinking of how the mistress had destroyed her family and put her child's life at risk, she slapped the mistress angrily, but was met with her husband's scolding and her daughter's harsh kick. They even claimed the mistress had been taking care of their daughter while she was missing for 3 days. Not only did he not appreciate it, but he also went mad. It was completely unreasonable. He hadn't even noticed that the woman's belly was flat. The woman, with no time to waste, rushed into the bedroom to grab her savings book. Then, disregarding their objections, she went to the bank. But in a more unbelievable blow, the savings book turned out to be fake, reflecting on her husband's secretive behavior and the mistress's proactive provocations. She realized her hard-earned savings had been stolen by the man and used to buy a bag for the mistress. This truth hit the woman like a bomb, leaving her brain blank. She could no longer hear the mistress's taunts demanding her to give up her seat. Desperate, she immediately started selling blood to raise money for her daughter's life-saving treatment. Unbeknownst to her, her father and brother had already heard about her situation and were on their way to help her. Her father, who had just placed several orders with her husband's textile factory, was shocked to find that his daughter couldn't even afford to save his granddaughter. He angrily declared that if anything happened to his daughter, he would not forgive him. But at that moment, the newborn baby had already passed away due to missing the best treatment time. Having endured 10 years of marital deception and betrayal by her husband and daughter, the woman simply wanted to sever ties with them. But now her husband had stolen all her money to please the mistress, leading to the death of her newborn daughter. She would never forgive these people. Coincidentally, the mistress came looking for trouble. In a fit of anger, she nearly attacked the mistress, but the mistress had timed it perfectly for the man and his daughter to enter, planning to completely drive the woman out. Meanwhile, her eldest daughter and father were discussing giving the newborn sister to the mistress to raise. They all said the mistress was gentle and could educate children well. What they didn't know was that the so-called gentle mistress had set up a trap, waiting for the father and daughter to fall into it. This scene made the father and daughter think that it was the wife bullying the mistress. The mistress then feigned innocence, claiming it was all her fault. At this point, the woman could only desperately try to explain to her husband and daughter, but the husband wouldn't listen and pushed her to the ground. Although the man regretted hurting his wife, he still chose the mistress over her, despite the mistress pretending to be hurt. Before leaving, he threatened that if the mistress had a scar, he would never forgive her. Then, without even seeing his newborn child, he and his daughter went to accompany the mistress to check her face. He still thought his wife was the same helpless orphan who could be controlled, unaware that the woman had helped him build everything. She had been deceived into being his free servant and childbearing machine for 10 years. But now, after achieving success, he used their joint savings to support the mistress, even indirectly causing the death of their baby to please the mistress. Every one of his actions made it impossible for her to show mercy. The woman, who was now returning to a wealthy family, would soon let him know that the orphan they once trampled on would become someone far beyond their reach. When they learned the truth, they would regret and despair completely.